Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the gallery stage at Change Now 2025. Lovely to see you all. Very intimate space here, which is nice because we're going to be able to hear everything everyone says and engage. My name's James Bidwell. I am your moderator for the next 65 minutes. I'm a positive change investor, a massive fan of Change Now, and I'm also former owner of Springwise, which is a major ecosystem partner to Change Now. Very excited to be moderating this session, which is all around spotlighting changemakers and creating thriving impact ecosystems. And in some ways, that is the essence of Change Now. And if those of you who were listening to Santiago this morning, you know, that's what this is all about. And I have an extraordinary group of people who are going to help have that conversation today and hopefully leave you inspired, excited, and hopeful. And in the words of Santiago this morning, what we need is concrete, collective, and unwavering action. And I think those of us who've been on this journey for a while, it's like we need to move fast and we need to move now. And today you're going to hear from people who are doing it in a variety of areas, and we're going to have a very good positive debate about how we can move forward. And I urge you, please, just to think about what you're going to do when you leave this session. Apart from say how brilliant it was to all your friends. So the session works, it's in three sections. We have a keynote, then we have a panel discussion, and then we have a fireside chat. Please do not leave after the panel discussion, because the fireside chat is fantastic. So please endeavor to stay for the whole thing. My opening speaker is an extraordinary young woman. For someone on the start of her journey, she is incredibly accomplished. She started her first project when she was 12 on the island of Bali with her sister, and it was called Bye Bye Plastic. She'll tell you a bit about that. In 2020, she founded something called Youthtopia, which is the go-to learning platform for young changemakers. She's very Gen Z, as you will see. She's very influential. She has written an amazing book, which she will be signing at 1 o'clock in the book corner. So please go down, and if you want to meet her, I think you will after this. And her book is called Change Starts Now, 100 Lessons from a Full-Time Changemaker. And in a way, that's what this is all about. So I introduce now, with great pleasure, Melati Wijsen. Melati.
Good morning, everyone. I wanted to start off with a question this morning. What if I told you it all works out? That it will work out. One day we will have no deforestation. There will not be a single oil spill in the ocean. We'll have functional and beautiful transportation, public transportation. There will be no more forest fires, no more floods. Would you believe me? Hands up for yes. It will all work out. Hands up for Mel. We still have a long, long, long way to go. Okay, so from my view to you, all hands were up for the second one. And it's not an uncommon reaction of the audiences and the different rooms that I am in. My name is Melati. I'm 24 years old, and I'm a full-time changemaker. I'm holding my book called Change Starts Now, which you heard in the introduction, is sharing 100 lessons of what I learned from 12 to 24 years old when I first started my change-making journey. Now, 100 lessons is a lot. I will not be sharing 100 with you today, but I will share a couple of what I've learned over the last decade of my activism. Now, that opening question, the reason why I asked it is because I'm also curious where you think this leadership for that change will happen in the first place. Let's break it down and say there are 3 levels where this leadership of creating change will happen the most. Where does this come from? Level 1, society, you and me. Level 2, businesses and the private sector. Or level 3, governments and institutions. Another interaction with the crowd. Who thinks it's coming from level 3? Let's start strong at the top. All right, take a good look around the room. Level 2, businesses and private sector will lead us to change. Okay? And level 3, society, you and me. right, so most hands come up here. And to go to the very beginning of my change-making journey, when I was 12 years old, the way that I looked at how change would happen was actually a collaboration amongst all three levels. I didn't see the difference between level 1, 2, and 3. I thought we needed every single person to create change, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what position you had, but most importantly, no matter how old you were. So me and my sister, growing up on the island of Bali, picture perfect paradise island. I don't know if any of you have ever been to Bali before. Perhaps you've seen it on your Instagram feed. Bali, the island of gods, but also Bali, the island of garbage. Growing up, it wasn't a news article or a distant future that we saw plastic pollution everywhere. It was our reality. Driving to school, looking out the window, walking on the beach, planting rice field with the farmers. Plastic was everywhere. And so at 10 and 12 years old, together with my younger sister, we said, enough is enough. What are we going to do about it? What can we do to create this change? And so at 10 and 12 years old, together with my sister, we created our first organization called Bye Bye Plastic Bags. But here's the catch. We didn't do it with a business plan, we didn't do it with a marketing strategy, and we definitely did not do it with a budget. But what we did have was a clear goal and vision for the type of change we wanted to achieve. Bye Bye Plastic Bags. The mission in the name. We wanted our island home of Bali to be plastic bag free. Because at the time, we learned that 40 countries around the world had banned single-use plastic bags. So we thought, 40 countries? Come on, Bali. Come on, Indonesia. We can do it too. And so we started. And our very first lesson was to be as specific as you can be. Because if we wanted to say bye-bye to all plastic, I think we'd still be actively campaigning to this day. But with the plastic bags, slowly more people joined. And we go back to those three levels of creating change. As a youth-led organization, we knew that our strengths was energy, motivation, an abundance of ideas. But we also knew we had to work with the businesses and the local small, medium entrepreneurs who were on the island. We knew we had to work with the governments because we wanted to achieve this policy change. So we hosted things like Bali's biggest cleanup. And this is one of my favorite initiatives that demonstrates how collaboration can work. But for context, let me tell you a little bit more. When we started Bye Bye Plastic Bags, we thought we would be finished before summer break was over and the school year would start. Little did we know the adventure we had just embarked on. So when change didn't happen 6 months later, and it still didn't happen a year later, we noticed and recognized something happening in the movement we were building. There was a loss of hope. And this is a dangerous territory to end up in, because when you start to lose hope, you start to lose momentum. And so one of our team meetings, we were at a home in our living room with our team, and someone said, what can we do about this? Someone slowly put up their hand and said, I have an idea. What if we organize Bali's biggest cleanup where everyone anywhere on the island can take part? And we thought, okay, why not? And so within 6 weeks, we mobilized a volunteer-led system where over 12,000 people were hosting their very own cleanups in their communities on the island in over 300 locations in one single day. And suddenly, this gave people a sense of leadership, but it was also an invitation for them to be a part of the movement. Suddenly, we had run clubs running and picking up plastic at the same time. We had school groups skipping a day of school to completely organize cleanups. We had dive clubs going underwater and hosting an underwater cleanup. Suddenly, the movement didn't only belong to a group of young people who envisioned Bali being plastic bag free, but the invitation and that thriving ecosystem was the invitation for everybody to get involved. There's one fundamental lesson and narrative that we also have to establish for this success on the long term. No matter which level you are in, society, a CEO, a manager, or a politician. This lesson I learned at a very young age growing up on the island. It is, we are nature. We are not separate from it. And sometimes it's easy in conference rooms or in governmental meeting rooms to forget this. In boardrooms, we forget this. So how do we create that narrative of connection again to nature? I'm going to ask everybody to sit up straight in your chairs. And, not stand. You can sit up straight. Sorry. I got some very excited people in the room. We're going to sit straight, roll our shoulders back, and on the count of 3, I'm going to ask everyone to take a nice deep breath in. 1, 2, 3. Take a deep breath in. And out. And another deep breath in. And out. Now, why did this island girl just ask us to breathe in the middle of her presentation at Change Now? Good question. It brings me back to the lesson of we are nature. Because when we do forget, our breath reminds us strongly that we are part of nature. Every second breath comes from the ocean. So it doesn't matter which room you're in, here in Paris, or in a classroom in Indonesia, or somewhere in the United States, we are connected to nature. And when we build that fundamental narrative and understanding that we are not separate from it, but we are a part of it, you build the next lesson, which is you protect what you love. And growing up again in Bali, thinking back to being 12 years old, it was easy to tell you I loved nature. Growing up next to the ocean, growing up around rice fields, I learned that lesson very early. And lesson number 2 of protecting what we love came very quickly afterwards. But I learned as well that change doesn't happen overnight. And even though you have those Bali's biggest cleanups, which happened 7 years in a row and became one of the island's most iconic events of the year, it topped my birthday and Christmas and New Year's because it was such an exciting moment. Still, year after year, we collected data, we presented it to the government, we rallied with thousands of people, and still, change was not happening. And at 16 years old, I reached my very first burnout. And I'm going to read a poem now of what I experienced going through this. When I look back, it's interesting because I wrote this poem when I was 13. So even before that feeling of frustration hit, I was already sensing that this was going to take a lot longer than I had envisioned. A poem written in 2014. I was 13 years old. From where I sit, I can hear a constant click. Tick-tock, tick-tock, all is a mystery, only one thing's for sure, my hatred for the clock with its constant tick-tock. And I remember going into these rooms as a young changemaker, delivering a speech to our governor, delivering a speech to our mayors, and we would be listened to, and at the end everyone would applaud and say, "Aw, girls, you're so cute and inspiring." And I remember me and my sister walking off the stage thinking, did they not hear anything we were talking about? That was not the point, to be cute and inspiring. So from this point of frustration, how did we continue? How did we keep on going? It was from establishing collaborations with leaders who actually believed in us and who actually implemented their walk or their talk. So seeing how they walk their talk. We worked with the hotel industries who collaborated with us on our first social enterprise to create alternative bags. I'll give you an example. Hotels in Bali often send sheets to the landfill when there's a spill or a rip and it gets wasted. Instead now, they established a system where they would deliver their old sheets to us and we would empower women in the mountains of Bali to produce alternative bags. The 50% of the sales profit of these bags would go back to the community where the women are from to be put into a budget for waste management, healthcare, and education. Suddenly, a business idea. Suddenly, we see that collaborations with different stakeholders allow a new possibility to start happening. We worked with schools, and we worked with schools and teachers to implement and change educational curriculums, because if we cannot learn about the problem, how are we supposed to be a part of the solution? I remember the first time I would go into a classroom in Indonesia 10 years ago, we would ask an opening question. And I write this in chapter 5, this experience of feeling so prepared and going in front of an audience and asking what we thought was going to be a simple question as a warm-up. Ready? Is plastic good or bad? And the whole audience erupted on their chairs saying, pick me, we know the answer, I know the answer. Plastic is good. And we stood back for a moment, looked left and right to my team members, and we could not go on with the speech we had prepared because that was not the answer we had prepared. So this deep fundamental understanding that change also starts with ourselves and our understanding. But it is not the responsibility only of what we felt our group was doing at the time as 10 and 12-year-olds going into the classrooms. Again, we knew we had to establish that collaboration from society, government, as well as private sector. And so establishing this in different ways throughout the 10 years has really given me the hope that we need to keep on going. But there's one other really important narrative shift that needs to happen. And I introduced myself as a full-time change maker, and I'm really incredibly privileged to have turned a 12-year-old's dream, vision of change into a full-time career as a 24-year-old. But when I say the word change maker, how many of you feel like, yes, that's me as well, Mel? Okay, a couple hands, which is lovely. But at the end of this session, all hands have to be up. Because this is the narrative change that we need. Being a change maker is essentially each and every one of us in all the decisions we make every single day in each moment. What we eat, what we wear, who we vote for, what we buy. Being a change maker is something that we do when we wake up and when we go to sleep. And this is the narrative change that I do now with my organization, Youthtopia. So by the way, in 2019, there was a ban on plastic bags, straws, and styrofoam on the island of Bali, thanks to the effort of so many like-minded organizations pushing for this policy change. So yes, we did it. We showed that people power can create change. But this narrative shift of what's next, thank you. And so now with Youthtopia, moving away from plastic pollution and plastic bags to youth empowerment and youth leadership, my new dream and vision and focus of creating a thriving ecosystem is first and foremost to show all the different ways to create change. Whether you're passionate about plastic bags, agriculture, dancing, writing music, whatever it is, this movement of change needs everyone. All the different unique skills, all the different unique strengths. And in order to do that, we also have to exercise our imagination. Since moving to Amsterdam a year ago to write this book, working with schools and working with different groups of people, I am so inspired, but I also see a bigger potential of taking lessons from the island here into city life, which is the power of imagination. And I'll read the last passage from chapter 10 to end my session, because the clock is telling me, Mel, time is up. But I wanted to start with this because I think it is a nice setting the scene for the next panel discussion. To go back to where I started with the question, what if it all works out, even better than we had all hoped and planned, so much better than we could have even ever dreamed? What if the forests grow back and the rivers flow full and the bees and the extinct rhinos, lizards and polar bears all came back and Earth was home once again to all living species? What if it all works out, even better than we had all hoped and planned, so much better than we could have ever even dreamed? Close your eyes and visualize the world you want. What does that world look like? I was in a workshop and the lead facilitator was guiding us through an exercise where we had to imagine the world we want. You can come up with anything. The wildest dreams come true here. Afterwards, we opened our eyes and had to write it all down. The more detailed, the better. My world had lots of big trees, fresh, clean rivers, butterflies, and bees. I saw beautiful sunshine powering our buildings with light, gardens everywhere, providing everyone with fresh food. Community-led action was at the center of every decision, and young people, of course, were actively involved. The point of this exercise was that if we can't imagine a system, a better world, how are we supposed to create one? It's hard to work towards something you can't see, feel, or touch. Dreaming big is key, but making it tangible allows us to see results. And when we see results, we build the confidence and courage we need to keep on expanding our imagination for a better world. Gloria Steinem once said, Without leaps of imagination or dreaming, we lose the excitement of possibilities. Dreaming, after all, is a form of planning. And when my sister and I set out to make Bali plastic bag free, people said it was an impossible goal. But slowly we started. We built a team and momentum, and after each cleanup, we felt a success. After each government meeting, we felt a little closer to the goal. Every signature we collected, donation we secured, event we spoke at, all of these tangible small goals made us realize that change was at our fingertips. Thank you very much.
Wow. Amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melati. That was extraordinary and amazing. And I urge you to buy the book. So 1 o'clock.